Daniel Cross and his crew thought they were making a documentary until the Alaska wilderness turned their cameras on them. The Alaska Triangle stretches across a hauntingly beautiful and perilous portion of America's last frontier. It connects Anchorage in the south, Juneau in the east, and Barrow far to the north, covering an expanse of dense forests, frozen tundra, and glacial mountains that few have ever dared to explore. To most, Alaska represents freedom, isolation, and rugged adventure. But to those who live in its shadow, the Triangle is a place where people vanish without explanation. For decades, pilots, hunters, tourists, and entire groups have entered its wilderness, only to disappear as if swallowed by the land itself. Over 16,000 vanishings have been reported, more than anywhere else in the country, and each one adds to a growing sense that something unexplainable lurks beneath the ice and silence. The mystery gained national attention in October 1972, when a small twin-engine Cessna carrying U.S. Congressman Hale Boggs, his aide, and two others vanished mid-flight between Anchorage and Juneau. The plane was equipped with experienced pilots and proper navigation tools, yet it disappeared from radar just 20 minutes after takeoff. A massive search operation began immediately, involving military aircraft, hundreds of volunteers, and advanced tracking systems. For 39 days, teams scoured over 30,000 square miles of rugged terrain, but not a single trace of the plane or its passengers was found. Even the snow seemed untouched, as though the sky itself had erased the evidence. When the search finally ended, the official report listed unknown causes. Pilots who joined the search later spoke of their compasses spinning uncontrollably and radios crackling with strange interference. Some saw shimmering distortions in the air, like heat waves in freezing temperatures. They reported sudden weather shifts that appeared out of nowhere, heavy fog forming in seconds, and bizarre electrical glitches that caused navigation panels to fail. These accounts were dismissed as exhaustion and environmental effects, yet those who had flown over the Triangle knew something about the area felt alive, as though it were responding to their presence. Locals in nearby towns had their own explanations. Some believed the disappearances were linked to ancient spirits from Alaska's native folklore. The Tlingit people spoke of the Kushtaka, shape-shifting tricksters said to lure travelers into the wilderness, never to return. Others insisted the ground itself was cursed, a thin boundary between worlds where time and reality warped together. There were also modern theories, magnetic anomalies disrupting aircraft, hidden military operations, or even natural energy vortexes capable of bending electromagnetic fields. Despite countless theories, no single explanation could account for the sheer number of people lost in such a vast, isolated region. The Alaska Triangle became a magnet for curiosity seekers, paranormal investigators, and desperate families searching for loved ones. Each year, someone else entered the wilderness, chasing answers. Most never found them. Those who did return often spoke of strange lights moving silently through the sky, whispers carried on the wind, and a feeling of being watched by something unseen. For outsiders, the Triangle remains a mystery of nature and chance. But for those who live in its reach, it is something deeper. A place where reality thins, where machines fail, and where the earth keeps secrets too vast to uncover. The disappearances continue, each one echoing the same haunting question. What really happens inside the Alaska Triangle? In the winter of 1986, the Alaskan wilderness was at its harshest. Snow buried the valleys in endless white, and temperatures plunged so low that even sound seemed frozen in the air. It was during this season that a miner named Thomas Reed ventured deep into the Chugach Mountains, searching for gold in an area untouched by human presence. Reed was a quiet man known for his persistence and obsession with exploration. He spent weeks alone in the wild, surviving off minimal supplies, and a stubborn belief that the mountains still held secrets worth uncovering. On one of those trips, he stumbled upon something that would never let him return. While scanning a frozen creek with his metal detector, Reed heard a sharp, persistent beeping, unlike anything he'd heard before. The signal was strong, coming from beneath several inches of ice. Expecting an old piece of mining equipment or a lost tool, he chipped away carefully until dull silver metal glinted through the frost. When he pried it loose, he found twisted fragments of aluminum. Some curved, others jagged, marked faintly with numbers and letters that had nearly worn away. One larger piece bore what looked like part of a serial code. To Reed's trained eye, the fragments resembled airplane wreckage, aged and weathered but clearly metallic. He was thrilled at first, convinced he had discovered evidence of one of the many planes lost in the Alaska Triangle. He carried a small piece back to town, excited to report his find. The local authorities sent the fragment to a regional aviation office for verification. Days later, the results came back with a chilling statement. The numbers didn't match any known aircraft on record. Officials dismissed it as unrelated debris, perhaps from an old weather balloon or abandoned project. Reed wasn't satisfied. He gathered a small group of miners and planned to return to the creek to recover more evidence. When he and his team arrived at the site a few days later, the wreckage was gone. Every trace of metal had vanished. The ice had been disturbed, leaving behind deep grooves in the snow as if something heavy had been dragged away. His crew grew uneasy and insisted they leave immediately, but Reed refused. He searched for hours, circling the creek, finding only a faint trail leading into the woods before it abruptly ended. The following morning, he returned alone to continue the search. That was the last time anyone saw him alive. 2 days later, a search party discovered his truck abandoned near the trailhead. The engine was still running, the driver's door open, and his equipment neatly stacked inside. There were no footprints leading away, no sign of struggle, and no body. The authorities concluded that he had wandered into the cold and succumbed to exposure, though no evidence supported that claim. Local residents whispered that he had found something he was never meant to see, that whatever power ruled the triangle had come to reclaim its secret. Over time, Reed's story became just another name on the long list of disappearances connected to the Alaska Triangle. Some dismissed it as a cautionary tale about greed and obsession, while others saw it as proof that the triangle protected its mysteries. In the years that followed, hikers who passed near the same area sometimes reported hearing faint metallic clinks echoing beneath the ice, as if something buried deep below was still shifting, waiting to be found again. In 1997, when most of the country was consumed by ordinary headlines, an investigative journalist named Aaron Walsh quietly began digging into a story most had chosen to ignore. She had spent years covering disappearances, cold cases, and unsolved crimes, but nothing unsettled her more than the Alaska Triangle. She was drawn to the area after reviewing a series of aviation incident reports that contained more redacted lines than readable text. Among the documents, one stood out: a cargo plane that vanished in 1994 with no wreckage, no survivors, and no official explanation. It was listed as a simple loss of signal, but something in the flight logs hinted at more. Aaron decided to find out what the government wouldn't say. Through contacts in aviation circles, she obtained a copy of the black box recording recovered months after the disappearance. The box had been found by a military search team, but was never released to the public. Listening to it alone in her small Anchorage office late at night, she heard a man's voice, steady, calm, describing their position. Then came confusion. The pilot mentioned strange lights hovering near the aircraft, moving in ways no plane or helicopter could. The co-pilot reported a sharp drop in altitude, though instruments didn't register any change. Then, seconds later, a deep mechanical hum began to bleed through the audio, low and steady, vibrating through the recording like the pulse of something vast. As the sound grew louder, the pilot's voice became distorted. The last clear words were a series of numbers followed by an abrupt silence. Then came a faint, rhythmic pulse, like a slow heartbeat. Aaron replayed it dozens of times, Convinced it wasn't a mechanical glitch, she sent the audio to 2 independent experts. Both returned the same response. The signal didn't match any known engine, weather pattern, or interference they could identify. When she tried to trace the flight itself, she discovered the airline didn't exist. The tail number was registered to a company that dissolved years earlier, and the crew members' names were sealed behind classified government files. Erin grew convinced that something more than navigational error had taken the plane. As she prepared to publish her findings, she began receiving silent phone calls at night. No one ever spoke. She noticed a black SUV idling near her street for 3 nights in a row. Then, 2 weeks after she shared the audio with a trusted colleague, her cabin outside Anchorage caught fire. Firefighters arrived too late to save it, and everything inside, her notes, tapes, and files, was destroyed in the blaze. Investigators called it an accident caused by faulty wiring. Those who knew Erin disagreed, but not everything was lost. Days before the fire, she had mailed a single cassette copy of the black box recording to a friend in Fairbanks. When it was later played, those who listened claimed they heard more than the hum. In the final seconds, beneath the static, was a faint voice counting backward from 10. The voice didn't match any of the listed crew members. It was lower, slower, deliberate, and it ended at 1. Then, silence. The official records never acknowledged the tape's existence. The plane was labeled as a routine disappearance in a dangerous flight corridor. But those who had heard that voice couldn't shake the feeling that whatever happened up there didn't belong to the world they knew. The black box recording became a quiet obsession among a handful of researchers and conspiracy investigators who treated it like a key to something larger. They didn't agree on what the sound represented, but they all agreed on one thing. It wasn't an accident. It was a warning. In 2005, the mystery of the Alaska Triangle deepened when a group of hikers captured photographs that would ignite years of speculation and silence. The group, made up of experienced mountaineers and amateur researchers, had been exploring a remote section of the Brooks Range. Their goal was to document unexplored terrain, but what they found instead would pull them into something they could not explain. Near the base of Mount Hayes, they noticed an odd shape carved into the rock face, a straight line cutting cleanly across the mountain, too precise to be natural. When they moved closer, the line widened into a tunnel-like opening surrounded by jagged stone. Through binoculars, they saw flashes of movement inside, brief glints of light that pulsed like machinery. One of the hikers used a telephoto lens to capture what appeared to be antennas and floodlights partially hidden by camouflage netting. The images showed geometric patterns too exact to be random, metallic surfaces, vent shafts, and large panels built into the rock. The group kept their discovery quiet at first, unsure what they had stumbled upon. A week later, they uploaded the photos to a small online forum for wilderness explorers. Within hours, the images began circulating across conspiracy sites, some claiming it was proof of a secret military installation. The coordinates placed the structure inside the Alaska Triangle, an area already infamous for its disappearances. 3 days later, the posts vanished. The forum was taken offline, and every copy of the photographs disappeared from major websites. The hikers' accounts were deleted, and messages to their profiles bounced back as undeliverable. Only one of the group, a man named Lewis Carter, managed to keep a printed copy of the photos. He shared them with a local newspaper reporter who agreed to meet him for an interview. Carter never arrived. His car was found abandoned along a snow-covered road leading toward Mount Hayes. The keys were in the ignition, but his tracks stopped 10 feet from the driver's door, ending abruptly as if he had stepped into thin air. Soon after, residents in nearby towns began reporting low-flying helicopters with no visible markings circling the mountains at night. Others claimed they heard deep mechanical rumbling beneath the ground, vibrations that lasted several minutes before fading into silence. Some believed the government was conducting experiments involving radar interference or high-frequency energy. A few went further, suggesting the facility was connected to the unexplained electromagnetic disturbances within the triangle. Theories spread quickly, linking it to advanced weather control programs or covert communication systems capable of manipulating magnetic fields. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the mountain changed. Weeks after the first reports, satellite images revealed that the slope where the structure once stood had collapsed. Officials described it as a natural avalanche, triggered by shifting ice and unstable rock. But analysts studying the images noticed something unusual. The collapse was symmetrical, too uniform to be random, and the surrounding snow remained undisturbed. The base had not been destroyed by nature. It had been buried on purpose. Afterward, the region was placed under restricted airspace. Navigation systems showed a digital void where Mount Hayes had once been mapped in detail. Pilots who flew near the area reported distorted compass readings and strange static bursts on their radios. Government agencies dismissed the stories as misinformation, yet the evidence never disappeared completely. Some of the missing photographs resurfaced years later in underground archives, showing the same angular openings in the rock, the same lights shining beneath the snow. Whether it was a hidden research station or something far older and less human, no one could say for certain. But one thing became clear to those who studied the images closely. The mountain was not empty. Something was still active beneath it. In 2023, a small documentary team set out to uncover what lay hidden within the Alaska Triangle. Led by filmmaker Daniel Cross, the group consisted of 5 members: 2 camera operators, a sound technician, a geologist, and a survival expert. They wanted to create a definitive documentary that separated myth from truth. Armed with high-tech drones, satellite communication, and thermal cameras, they believed modern technology could finally expose what had eluded so many before them. Their journey began in Anchorage, where they interviewed locals who spoke of strange lights in the sky and whispers that carried through the forests at night. Every person told a different story, but each ended with the same warning. Once you cross into the triangle, it doesn't always let you leave. The team reached their destination near Mount Hayes after 3 days of travel. The mountain loomed ahead, wrapped in mist, silent and still. They set up a base camp near the site where earlier hikers had vanished years before. The first night passed uneventfully, though Daniel's drone footage captured faint orbs of light moving in the distance. By the second night, their equipment began to fail. GPS signals drifted, batteries drained at impossible speed, and the temperature dropped far lower than forecasts predicted. The geologist noticed that compasses pointed west one moment and east the next, as if the magnetic field around them were twisting. Still, Daniel pushed forward, determined to film everything. Late that evening, the team followed a cluster of heat signatures picked up by their drone roughly a mile from camp. The footage showed a pattern of lights hovering low over the snow, pulsing in rhythm like a living thing. They hiked toward it despite worsening conditions, snow swirling so thickly that visibility shrank to mere feet. The sound technician reported faint vibrations in the ground, a low, steady hum that grew stronger the closer they moved. Then the lights appeared before them, floating spheres, cold white against the darkness, silent and motionless. The team raised their cameras, but each device flickered and shut off. Within seconds, every piece of equipment died at once. What happened next is pieced together only from recovered data. A search party sent out days later found the team's camp intact. The tents were neatly arranged, food supplies untouched, and footprints surrounded the perimeter as though the group had left in an organized line. Every electronic device had been drained of power except for one drone, which was discovered several hundred feet away, its battery still half full. The footage from that drone became the only surviving record of the expedition. The video began normally, Snow Mountain sky, but shifted abruptly to a view of the 5 figures walking toward a luminous fissure in the distance, a rippling glow in the snow that seemed to pulse in time with the same rhythmic hum heard on the old black box recording. As they approached, their outlines began to distort, flickering like static before dissolving completely. The camera hovered, spinning slowly, before descending into darkness. Authorities classified the footage as a fabrication. The area was closed to the public under the claim of unstable terrain, and the incident was erased from official records. Yet those who analyzed the footage privately noticed something impossible. In the final frame, a reflection of the cameraman appeared in the ice. It wasn't his own. The figure behind him was taller, broader, and motionless. Its outline shimmered faintly before fading away as the image cut to black. The disappearance of Daniel Cross and his crew was added to the long list of unsolved cases inside the Alaska Triangle. Search efforts continued for weeks, but found no bodies, no footprints beyond the campsite, and no trace of the equipment except the single drone. To this day, their story remains the latest and perhaps most chilling reminder that some places are not meant to be understood. The triangle endures, vast and silent, keeping what it takes, its secrets frozen beneath the endless snow.